I think my favorite thing to do is to film these intros with low lighting right before I'm about to go to bed. My makeup mostly off, my hair looking like this. Keeps you humble, keeps me humble. Anyway, I'm gonna read everything on my currently reading shelf again. This is something I did like 6 months ago because I was feeling really confused about my reading life, and it was sort of a cleanse, and honestly, it really helped. So we're gonna do that again. You know, maybe it's something I'll do every 6 months, especially when I'm running out of content ideas. I don't know how long this is going to take, but I believe we are in for a ride because I've started a lot of books in the last 6 months that I haven't finished that are pretty weird. Plus, I have realized that there are books that were on my currently reading shelf that I forgot about that have been there for years. So couple those together and you have some fun content. Anyway, I am now going to go to bed and we're going to start tomorrow tackling this unruly shelf. I am on the hunt for our cat. She likes to go roaming during the day and I want to find her. I got done with work and I finished a book. I finished my first book on my currently reading shelf. This one was a book that I started fairly recently, like in the last week or so since it's been out, and that is Ophelia After All by Raquel Marie. This was a highly anticipated book for me. I don't, as we all know, read a ton of YA, but I was really excited to pick this one up. Raquel Marie is a former booktuber, and I love to support folks in the book community writing books, so I was pumped to pick it up. And guess what? I ended up loving this book. This is where the light's at. This is the story of Ophelia. Ophelia is in her senior year of high school, in her last semester of high school. She's gearing up for prom. She's an avid gardener, specifically loves rose gardening. She's very close with her parents and tells them everything, and she has a very close-knit group of friends. Now, this is a story about Ophelia sort of asserting herself and figuring herself out, or beginning to figure herself out as a young adult, specifically with her sexuality and her crush on somebody fairly new to their friend group. And this is just a finely told, very sweet, wholesome, beautiful story, and I really loved it. Also, on a very personal note, I love this story because the main character's mother is a professor. My mother is a professor, and there are certain things that happen that I'm like, I relate to this experience, and I love that. I told my mom today, I was like, I think we should have more books where people have parent professors, just for the selfish reason of me wanting to read that. I think the thing about this book that really sold me before I started reading it was that it wasn't a romance. And I love romance, but I don't love reading YA romance. It just doesn't really speak to me. But this is not a romance. This is truly a coming-of-age story told with such humor, gentleness, fun, whimsy, and accuracy. I also think it's one of the few books that I have read that accurately portrays Gen Z as someone who's a cusper. And I really loved it, and I would really recommend picking this book up. I still haven't found the cat. We found Dorky. This is not a review yet because I haven't finished anything else, but I'm drinking a wine in a can, and tonight, Ileana and we are gonna watch my current favorite show, and that is The Challenge. I am someone who really only gets into reality TV anymore. It's very hard for me to invest time in scripted television because I get really stressed out, or I don't want it to end. It's just too many feelings, and I just want shows that are easy to watch, and I'm a big Survivor fan, so it just makes sense that I'm now into The Challenge. I basically watched a newer season, War of the Worlds 1, and fell in love with it, and then went back, watched season 12, then I went forward, and I've watched 17, 18, and now I'm on to 19. So I'm having a great time, and I have so many thoughts and feelings. So we're gonna watch that because I love to get my friends involved in my reality TV obsessions. But I did want to show y'all what I am most currently reading that I was already currently reading, and I feel meh about both books, and I'll talk about them fully when I'm done. But I am reading Witch Please by Anne Aguirre. I started this back in October for a video actually and put it down. So I'm reading this, and I'm also listening to the audiobook of Getaway Girl by Tessa Bailey. Feeling just about both of them, although I like the vibes of this book because it's witchy and I love witchy books and it's small town, you know, energy. Getaway Girl is okay so far. Definitely not in love with it, but we'll see what happens. I have some reading updates. I have read now 100 pages of Witch Please. I think when I started this, I was only like 25 pages in, so we've made progress. I went from feeling kind of blah about it to actually really enjoying it. Like, I'm finding it really fun and cute, and it has a lot of elements and romance that I really like. I didn't actually explain what this book was about, but this is about this young lady here. She's a witch, and she runs a business with her sister where they fix stuff because they're like techno witches or whatever, so use magic to fix stuff. He is the local town baker and local eligible bachelor, and he runs the bakery with his sister. They live in this small town in the Midwest, so it has small town vibes. It's set in the summertime. There's lots of baked goods. There's family dynamics. Like, she's in a situation where her grandmother wants her to marry a bloodline witch, and her mother doesn't really care. So she, like, is falling for this guy who's a mundane, but, like, she can't actually be with him. She can't have her grandmother find out. I love how I'm just pointing. And he is very unlucky in love. Like, he has never really been with anyone. He's always had every relationship fall apart. So it's just like a very interesting dynamic, and I'm enjoying it. And it's very cute and cozy so far. Yay. Getaway Girl. I'm also getting near the end of Getaway Girl by Tessa Bailey. This book is about the... I don't know how to describe this book because it's kind of a wild concept to me. Basically, this book starts off with this girl. She's at her cousin's wedding, her estranged cousin's wedding. There's beef there with their families. And basically, she notices how attractive the groom is. The groom happens to be the mayor's son, and he is in line or going to probably take over for his father and be elected as mayor. They're in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm from South Carolina, so, you know, always love to see that, I guess, in a book. And basically, he finds out that his fiance has left him at the altar, and because he's such a big deal in, like, the town and society, he ends up running off, and she is his, like, getaway driver. She's like, get in my car, we'll get out of here. So they end up starting to, like, live together because he's trying to get away from the press and the media, and he doesn't want to be in his house where he used to live with his fiance. So sort of like a friends to lovers situation. I still am not crazy about this book. I have really loved some of Tessa Bailey's newer books. Like, I loved Window Shopping. I loved both books in the Ballinger Sisters series. But this book just doesn't feel like it's set up super well. Like, I can't tell how much time has passed, which is a problem. They'll be like, oh, it's been months. And I'll be like, really? It's been months? It feels like it's been 3 days. But I do like Friends to Lovers. It tends to always be a hit for me. So we'll see how it goes. I finished Getaway Girl by Tessa Bailey. I started this book a few months ago, put it down for a lot of the reasons that I've already said, which is that I just felt like it was slow at the beginning and I couldn't grasp or wrap my head around the timing of everything. Like, this is Friends to Lovers, and I just felt like the friendship wasn't built up very well. But the last half was very fun. It was very Tessa Bailey, meaning quirky girl with lots of quirks and man who worships the ground that she walks on. And a lot of like, oh my God, is someone going to get injured in the third act? Which is really, honestly, fun to read. It was really entertaining. It was fun. I ended up liking their dynamic. I felt their chemistry. It was enjoyable. I have one nitpicky thing, which is this book is set in Charleston. I'm from South Carolina, not from Charleston, but I, know enough about Charleston, been to Charleston many times, also have watched a lot of Southern Charm, so I feel like I'm an expert. The main guy character is by the end of the book, the mayor of Charleston, and his dad was the mayor for 30 years and basically like had been running the city as an advisor for the last few years. And while I felt like some things about that were accurate, like I could totally see that happening, like a family just continually running Charleston. And I also like felt like the families that all had to like interdate each other was accurate, and like the drama and the gossip and all of that felt really real. Just the idea that this sweet man who had progressive policies that would potentially jeopardize tourism in order to like stop gentrification would ever actually happen is laughable. Like, I mean, it might happen in the future. I hope it happens in the future. I think a lot of people in Charleston are working for that to happen, and for, you know, tourism and like people moving in and pushing people out stops. It's the most fantastical part of the book for me. Like, it just, yeah. But I get what Tessa was trying to do. Romance can sometimes be what we want and what we desire. And I did think it was funny that he was a nepotism baby, because it was just entertaining. But I enjoyed it. Getaway Girl, you know, not my favorite Tessa Bailey, but definitely not my least favorite Tessa Bailey. Very much in the middle. I'm gonna go to bed now. We're gonna read more tomorrow. I have the giddiest grin on my face because y'all, Witch Please is so good. Little fun fact, this fella right here is bi, which you don't really read a lot in romance, I feel like. Especially romances where a cis man and cis woman are together. So yeah, just something to note. Very sweet. I finished Witch Please. I really loved this book. It was so good. It was totally up my alley, like I've already said. It was sweet. It had fun plot elements. It had a big, full cast of characters and camaraderie and family dynamics and magic and realism and drama. I loved it. And I'm hoping that there's a second book coming out. It's so weird because when I started this book in a video back in October, I just didn't like it. Like, I wasn't vibing with it. I only read the first few chapters and I was like, But for whatever reason, like, I got past that first bit and I fell in love with it, and it was totally a 5-star read for me. Like, I would totally recommend this book, like I said, if you like the X-Hex, if you like Not the Witch You Wed, if you like any sort of witchy romances, I think this is totally good. Really liked both of these main characters. I really liked the guy especially. Like, I just really liked their dynamic and how they fell in love, and while it was fast, it was like handled well, and I just really enjoyed this book. I didn't know what was going to happen, and that's not always true in romance. Like, obviously, you know it's gonna work out, but some of those plot details, you don't know how they're gonna work out. In terms of audiobooks, I started making more headway on a book I started last week, and that is To Sir Philip with Love, which is the most clunky title. It's the 5th book in the Bridgerton series about Eloise Bridgerton. She's a spinster, 28, and basically there's this man, Philip. His wife dies tragically. He's left with twins. He can't handle them. They're rambunctious. And Eloise reaches out to him to basically send her condolences because she knew his wife, and they start a correspondence. And he's like, hey, what if we got married? Because, like, I need a mother to my children and I need a wife. That's basically the setup. I'm reading this with my friend Emily. We've been, like, over the last year or so, slowly making our way through the Bridgerton books together. I'm not loving this one so far. I don't like Philip. Like, he's not charming. He's not rakish. Like, I like my men in my Regency era romances to be sassy and rakish and fun, and he is so far very boring. So we shall see. But that's where we're at. Very happy about this, though. I'm looking like I've spent the day dozing in and out of sleep, which is true. I'm exceptionally sleepy today, so I'm yawning. Why do I keep saying that? I continued on with a book that I started a few weeks ago, and that is The Marvelers by Danielle Clayton. This I got as an ARC on NetGalley. It's a middle grade book about a girl who is in a magical world like Earth, and she's a conjurer, and there are these people called Marvelians who do marvels, a different kind of magic practicing, and they have this world in the sky, and they have a school there for children, and she is the first conjurer to go to this school. So, of course, we're gonna have mysteries and secrets and all of that good stuff. I'm 20% of the way in, and I'm loving it. This is such a cute middle grade. It's exactly what you want from a middle grade, which is whimsy, excitement, cute friendship, intrigue, mystery, danger. It's just incredibly warm and whimsical and well written, and I'm really, really enjoying it so far. I also kind of put the Bridgerton book down again. I will pick it back up. My plan is to finish it next couple days, but I started back up a book that I started reading in 2019, and that is The Library of the Unwritten. I started reading this book in 2019, and for whatever reason, returned it to my library, just wasn't feeling it, got like 20% into the book and just gave up basically. But I remembered everything that I had read, so I was like, you know what, let's put that book to bed. So I started back up. Thankfully, Libby remembers what you've listened to, and I'm now about 50%, and I'm enjoying it. A lot of people really like this book. It is like dark academia sort of moment, fantasy about this library that's in hell, that is full of books that have not been written, and it's about the librarian and a bunch of other people as hell and heaven try to find this one specific book that the devil wrote, basically. So it kind of has a Good Omens vibe to it. I'm enjoying it. It's a little boring, which I think is probably why I put it down and why I also keep dozing, because it's just not the most intriguing, but my goal is to finish that today. I don't know if I'm going to be able to, because I am pretty tired, but we're going to try to finish that audiobook today. I finished The Library of the Unwritten. I finished this book pretty quickly. I was at like 20%, 25%, something like that when I picked it back up. I had to backtrack a little bit, but for the most part, I started at that point. And I think I finished this book so quickly because I wanted to be done with it. And I could just barrel through the audiobook while doing other things. I should have loved this book. It has a lot of elements that I tend to really enjoy. Like, I love books about books and secret libraries, and I love this kind of like bureaucracy fantasy. I think it's really entertaining. But it just lacked something. It lacked something in the characterization. I didn't feel like I cared about any of these characters. I didn't feel connected to them. I didn't really care what happened to them. The big battle sequence at the end, I didn't feel anything. Like, there are certain things I know I was supposed to be feeling that I wasn't feeling. I just didn't care. It had like the whimsy of Good Omens, which is a TV show. I've never read the book, that I really enjoyed, but without the emotional sort of integrity that that TV show had. So that was my main issue with this. I just was bored, and I also couldn't fully grasp what was going on in terms of setting. Like, it changed setting a lot, and I understood it was sort of nebulous going through these different worlds, but I had a hard time understanding those transitions. So I wanted to love this book, ended up not really loving it. And, you know, I kind of figured that was going to happen. This was one of the books where I was like, I really didn't remember liking the beginning of this book when I read it in 2019. But, you know, I was wrong about this. So I was like, maybe it'll be like a Witch Please and I'll end up loving it. My first impressions were right, but I do understand why people like this book. So that's fine. Totally fine. Ooh, she put on makeup. Oh, her collar's messed up though. I finished The Marvelers by Danielle Clayton. This book was such a quick read. I read it in like 2 days as an e-arc. I think it comes out on May 3rd, which is my birthday. But if I'm wrong, just it'll be down below when it comes out. I loved this middle grade moment. I thought it was so good. It had everything that you could possibly want in a middle grade book. a really fun concept, whimsy, a little danger, cute friendships, family, a lot of stuff set up that I know will keep coming up throughout the rest of the series as it comes out. I'm a big fan of Danielle Clayton. I loved her book, The Bells. I thought that book was so fun and whimsical and had that darkness to it, and that's a YA book, so I knew that this was going to have rich storytelling and setting and great characters, and it had that. I love this book. I would really recommend it if you're a fan of whimsical, fun, middle grade. I love the magic system in this book and how it relates to history and real life history. And it was just so interesting and fun and good. And like I said, you should really, really pick it up. Definitely a 5-star read. Such an enjoyable, intensely fun, quick, fast-paced middle grade. So yay. I would like to finish the Bridgerton book today. I just want to get it done. I'm like 40% of the way into it and I'm really not enjoying it so far. So I'm hoping the last part of it really picks up and it becomes more enjoyable. But right now it's just I'm not liking it very much at all. I finished To Sir Philip with Love. It was so bad. It was so boring. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just because when I was first reading romance in like high school, I read Julia Quinn and I really loved it. Or if it's the fact that like my relationship to Julia Quinn didn't come through Bridgerton, it came through Smythe books. I don't know. This one was really disappointing. So far, I've only really liked one of these books, and it was Benedict's and Sophie's book, which is book 3. This was just deeply boring. I didn't see their chemistry. I thought the guy, Philip, was really boring. I thought Eloise deserved better. The children were just really annoying. The mental health politics about what happened to his first wife were really weird and clunky, and she was totally seen as the villain. I just did not like this book in the slightest. And it's not even that I'm like full of rage about it. It's just sort of like, So there you go. Not happy with that one. Didn't like it. Wasn't interested in it. I will say from an audiobook standpoint, maybe I would have liked this better if I'd read it physically. The audiobook narrator narrates all the men the same and all the women the same, so it's hard to tell the difference, and also just their voices are so stuffy. So I don't love that. I don't think it helps the book at all. So I don't know. That's where I'm at with that. I just thought it was bad. I'm done! I finished my last currently reading book. I didn't tell y'all how many books that I had on this list, so I wanted to kind of keep it a surprise when we were done, but we're done. I finished the last book, and that last book was The Roughest Draft. This book was written by, I do believe, a married couple, which is exciting. I've never read a book, I think, by a married couple, especially a romance book. But this follows 2 people who are co-writers. They've written a very successful literary fiction novel. A lot of people are like, what is their deal? Because guess what? At the start of this novel, they're not talking to each other. They end up, through extenuating circumstances, her terrible boyfriend, who's also her literary agent, him, his need for success, to come back together to write one more book, a book that they're contracted to do. So 4 years later, they're doing the thing. They're at a beach house trying to write this book together, and also having to deal with all the feelings that are unresolved from 4 years prior. Throughout this book, we get flashbacks from those 4 years prior and what happened, and also you see what's happening currently, so it has that sort of same Emily Henry, People We Meet on Vacation vibe, kind of mixed with beach read kind of moment. They are writing a literary fiction book with romantic elements, which is interesting. I ended up really liking this book. I love Emily Henry, so it doesn't surprise me that I like a book with such similar vibes, but also this did its own thing. It was very romantic and lush, and you could tell that the 2 people writing this like have a lot of affection for each other, if not love. If they're not married, then don't quote me on that. And I just really liked the way this book talked about writing and talked about how your relationship to yourself and to other people is affected by your writing, or how it affects your writing. I actually didn't like either of the characters, but in a way where I liked them. Like, the guy is very annoying and very self-important, and the girl is very annoying and very whiny and indecisive. And so even though I didn't like either one of them, I was rooting for them as a couple, and I sort of liked them. So it worked. This book has great angst and pining and longing. And if you like slow burn, friends to lovers, this definitely has that. I enjoyed it. I would give it a read. It was nothing like I expected, and also a lot like I expected. Also a great audiobook with a dual narration, which is always great, and they did a fabulous job. I just hit myself. So that is everything that I had on my currently reading list. I am sure I will do this again in another few months when I have built up a bunch of stuff that I needed to finish. I'd love to know your thoughts about everything that I read down below. Have a lovely, lovely day.